Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Another Whisky Podcast. I am your host, Nicholas Polacki. This is our cold open, and this episode is about artificial intelligence, which is kind of telling because Mitch can't get his microphone to work. So, we don't even have real intelligence in this show. Anyway, we're about to be joined by Kevin Shaw from Stranger and Stranger, and we're going to talk all things artificial intelligence and how it's likely to affect the whisky industry moving forward. Thanks for tuning in. This is Not Another Whisky Podcast. Kevin, thanks very much for joining Mitch and I on this kind of special episode of Not Another Whisky Podcast, where we will talk about whisky, but specifically how the world of AI is influencing the whisky world and what you foresee the future of that being. Would love to hear a little bit about, what you do with Stranger and Stranger. First of all, if that's something you can touch on.
Sure. Well, Stranger's been going now for 30 years next year. And we started off doing wine branding and labels in London all that time ago, then came over to the US on the back of Jack Daniels and clients like that, really. And then kind of just expanded out. So we've been doing work from like really luxury end, high-end whiskies in China and all the way back to the old Scotch, and we've handled everything from Jack Daniels to Aberfeldy, and Compass Box is one of our longest standing clients. I think we've been working with him for about 15 years, and we've done 60 odd SKUs in that time. Wow. There's so many labels out there. We're up to, I think, 7,000 that we've done in all of that time, but there's still so many more to do.
And it's Stranger and Stranger. Wow. Do you look at all their storytelling, their branding, their marketing, as well as like the visual aspect of the brand?
Yeah, and everything else. We'll even get into the liquids as well. One of our clients came in with a piece of fruit and he said, I'm going to make a liqueur out of this. What do I do? And so everything from the name, the storytelling, the branding, the rollout of it. We even introduced him to producers, bottlers, distributors. And recently a few of our clients have been able to sell out for hundreds of millions.
Is that how Cointreau began?
And sometimes we take a share. So yeah, wasn't that? But I'm sure they once upon a time, like 300 years ago, some guy walked into a thing with a piece of fruit. Yeah. So we do absolutely everything. We do the whole thing from the real basics to the exit.
Fantastic.
And Kevin, how did you get into this? Was this more of a design thing that led into booze, or was it the other way around?
Yeah. When I started the company, our first client, weirdly, was Dell Computers. It was a pitch that nobody wanted to do because it was boring, and then I didn't even know what Dell Computers was at the time.
But it drove you to drink.
Well, it did. It's an amazing job. I mean, it financed everything, bought the house, bought the car. It was great. It was just a little bit dull, So I was entertaining myself with alcohol. And I was sitting in a wine auction with our strategic planner, and we were watching all the lots come up and all the on the slides, and he said, those labels are really terrible. And I think I can do something about that. So I went around to the nearest distributor to us, which is a place called Bibendum in North London. And I said, let me do some labels. And he said, well, we don't have any budget for that. And I said, well, I'll do it in exchange for wine. And so he said, okay. So he gave me a few projects, and this lorry load of wine pitched up at the house, like a box truck of wine, which is it's hard to accommodate if you're not ready for it. I was expecting a few cases of, but I had to clear out like a whole cellar, put half my furniture outside and all this. But it took 10 years to drink it. But anyway, the more importantly, the labels increased his sales. And so then it just started to kind of roll on. And the more we did, and the more PR we got out of these big sales achievements, the kind of more calls we got. And then we got a call from William Grant. So that was the first liquor we got. and yeah, did a few projects for them, and then some of the William Grant's guys left to form this outfit called Proximo in the US, and we did this project called the Kraken, which just blew up. And yeah, we just had like half a dozen real like massive success stories, and that's caused that's given us our reputation within the industry to be able to shift bottles.
Very cool. Very cool indeed. So coming back towards AI, obviously,
Yeah.
Mitch had read something that you'd said, and I'll let him kind of give you the quote in a second. But, you know, I think that we touched on this about 2 weeks ago in a different episode, and we wanted to kind of hold fire a little bit and get someone like yourself on to really kind of dive in a little bit deeper into this. But Mitch, what was a quote that you'd read that Kevin had said?
Yeah, I mean, this was really interesting because Kevin, someone sent me this actually after they listened to the podcast, and it was from the buyer, and it was a really interesting. We'll put this we'll put this in the links in the show, but I love the first line of this, and it was I'd advise everyone to strap in and see how they can make AI a tool before they become a tool of AI. You know, and then you go on to talk about all the different aspects and how AI has been used within the drinks industry, within your world. I mean, how have you seen, well, I suppose I want to start with asking you, how have you seen this change your world in this short period of time so far?
And before you even answer that, I just have a quick thing, Kevin. Did you actually say that, or did someone use AI and attribute that quote to you?
No, I did make a point of saying that none of my article was written by AI, because, you know, all these writers now are getting ChatGPT to write all their stuff for them.
Yeah.
No, I said all of that. It's definitely I can definitely see it making an impact on this industry. It's our job. Everything that you ever see that we've done has been done years ago. Like, we're working for 3 years in the future. All the packs that we're doing now are for 25 and 26, and so it's our job to kind of to futurize and see how things are going to be. So we're always keeping the tabs on any new developments and where we see the progressions of those things happening, just strategically to try to be on top of everything. It's no point us launching stuff that's behind when it's launched. So I've been really fascinated by all this, the AI stuff, primarily because I couldn't think. So I made the point to these wine guys. I can't think of any area of the wine industry that this won't touch. Now, they've already made an AI wine blend, right? They've got AI, artificial intelligence, to make a wine blend. Okay. And a wine label. Well, more than one wine label if you look around. And AI has written a review of a wine blend, of a wine product. Now, what these engines are capable of doing, if, for example, you could get an engine to scour the internet, Facebook, everything, and find the ideal wine blend for most people. So the median, what it's great at doing is creating average, or finding out what average is. And it could tell you the flavor profile of a wine or a whiskey or anything that would appeal to the most people. And it could help you through analysis of the lab results to blend a whiskey or a wine or anything that would appeal to the most people. And then it would churn out a label, a very decent private label. And, you know, one of those huge retailers could take that private label product and make it massive, or without employing any people whatsoever. I mean, and they could do this in minutes. It's unbelievable how fast these things learn. Like, if we ask it the same question 2 minutes apart, it will give you a more evolved answer, because it's listening to thousands of people all the time, and it's learning from thousands of people all the time. So it just kind of it can't really create. The AI takes a kind of an average and references from everything that you give it, or everything that you can find online related to your parameters, and it can't really strategize very well. But what it can do is it can make brilliant average products, and it can do it quickly. It can do it more cost effectively than anyone else, and it could probably run all the logistics better than any human could as well. Yeah. It's quite I couldn't, as I said, I can't think of any area within the wine business that can't be touched by it. And I was just talking to these wine people at the time, but the things can you can certainly roll it out to every drinks product.
So one of the things that has come up with AI, actually of late, just this week, I was reading what we're seeing with things like ChatGPT and other programs that run through different algorithms of stuff, is that we're seeing artists coming to the forefront and saying, well, wait a minute, this is taking my intellectual property into the fold and regurgitating it out and recreating it in a different manner, but effectively without my creative, that doesn't exist. And there's now an intellectual property right conversation going on specifically within there's a couple of comedians that are at the table, there's some music and obviously with lyrics and things like that, but specifically this one I was reading was about comedy, and they're saying like is that something that we could see happen if brands start leaning into AI to create copy for the labels and things like that, where somebody comes to the table and says, wait a minute, this is just rewritten what I've written and I can show you option A, B, and C, where we then start seeing lawsuits, specifically in a place like where I am right now in the States. It's notoriously litigious.
Sure. There's one of them which is works for employment. So it will analyze a prospective employee's CV, and then it will check all the data points to make sure they really did go to all those colleges and learn all those things. And then it will analyze the written document to see if it's been cut and paste or churned out by an AI program. So that's on one side. Then there's this other program which will just take any amount of copy or information and just replace it with synonyms. So it's saying more or less the same, but it's using different words to say it. And that gets around all your trademark issues. And so it's clever. It's clever enough now to do it with words. It will be clever enough because this thing is progressing so fast. Yeah. It will be clever enough to do it with everything.
And is that something that, you say it can effectively just use synonyms and change things over? Synonyms, is that a spice?
Synonyms.
Yeah, exactly. Is that that's a flavor profile?
So it'll just choose words that mean the same or very close to it.
Yep.
And it will just change the paragraph completely, but it will mean the same stuff.
But without the human interaction element of it, does it then become, when you read something that's written by AI, are we going to become numb to that process? Like, does it sound, I don't know, I'm trying to see how to phrase this properly. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that when a brand has a brand voice, and it's specifically a brand voice that is, iconic or whatever it happens to be, AI can obviously replicate that, but you're still going to need human beings to come into that and say, oh, I need to sense check everything here, because yes, it can do the majority of the heavy lifting relatively quickly. And I have played around with ChatGPT. It is lightning fast. The quality of the content it writes is fairly excellent. But it still needs work. Like, it still needs tweaking. Like you said, it'll learn to do something in fractions of seconds. It would take human beings hours, if not days, or weeks, months, and years to learn. I guess my question is, are brands going to look at that as a positive, or are they going to look at that as, that's not what we are, therefore we're actively going to step away from it?
I think once you've set up the tone of voice, I think it will get it right almost every time. What the point I made the other day was, it's not going to. I think everybody's scared of AI turning into Skynet or Matrix or something like that. And it's not all of that. But I did say that I thought it would decimate the industry, because Think about lawyers, right? Lawyers spend all this time. It's bad. I remember I was talking about taxi drivers the other day. You know, taxi drivers in London, they do this 5-year thing called the knowledge, where they drive around every street on bicycles and motorbikes. And now they've just been replaced by an app, an Uber, right? It's going to be the same with, say, lawyers. Yep. Lawyers won't need paralegals anymore. You'll still need a lawyer at the top, but you won't need all these people to churn out all your argument. The ChatGPT lawyer engine will just like research every single case that's ever been, come out with a perfectly good argument. The guy at the top will just go, yeah, sounds right, or no, sounds wrong. Ask it to do a couple more churns. And so what it will do is just take out a whole bunch of people. It will it's for my industry on designers, you know, I can get one guy to do a lot more than they could even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And so what I don't need as many of now are junior designers doing that grunt work, because the machine will just do all the grunt work.
Yeah.
So it's not like it won't need people. It's just it's going to need a lot less of us.
But in that environment, like as the example that you gave, yeah, it could give a legal argument, but then at some point, do you need the lawyer? Do you need the jury? And do you need the judge? Or is AI going to do all of it and say, guilty, not guilty? Here's, like we ran the facts of the case through a program, and it's more likely than not on, like you said, this is what it does. It creates a law of averages. So on the law of averages, it's more likely, based on your background, social economic status, and all the things that we know about you on social media, that you probably did or did not do this.
Yeah. And then take that one step further. You can kind of think about, Minority Report. You remember that?
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be a time when AI is going to be going, yeah, these people might be doing some crime soon.
Yeah.
So, and that could, I mean, there's certain areas where you think, it's going to make a massive impact. But on the drinks business, it's still going to make a huge impact. I couldn't get I used the case and the bit that I talked to the buyer about of supermarket buyers. Like an AI engine now could analyze all the shelves, all the demographics, all the competitive shelves, and just churn out a set of perfectly maxed out private labels that would compete. And the point is, you wouldn't need to hire a bunch of people to do this. It could do it all you give it a couple of hours. I mean, it's scary how fast it works and how thorough the research is that it does. Anything that's online, it just sucks it up. And it's scary stuff.
So it is, but actually, the guys at ChatGPT were saying, because these guys are getting hauled in front of Congress right now, right? So this is how serious this is. It's not people aren't taking this lightly, but they've been saying that we stopped feeding it information 2 years ago, so it's not actually plugged into the Skynet of our current internet. It can't pull today's data. So, for example, if you were to ask it about trading stocks, as of this week, that it won't give you an answer. It'll say we don't have the information, but we'll give you the information from the last potential date of whatever. But I mean, is that it? Like, are we all going to become stockbrokers and move into like we're going to? Is it what's the definition of insider trading at this stage of the game? And does it allow us to look at a 3-tier system in the USA, for example, and be like, well, wait a minute, what is the value of a 3-tier system when we know exactly what we can't do, what works, what doesn't work, what brands will come into the space and have an impact, and what ones won't?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're all going to become stockbrokers. I mean, those guys could easily be replaced by AI. What I was looking at as well was the way that ChatGPT is like the engine that's most well known, because it makes the newspapers for the fact that kids are using it to write their homework and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But there are already like dozens of these things out there doing different specialist things. And all the big software companies, Adobe, Microsoft, they're all writing this stuff into all their programs because they're going to try and find ways to monetize it. All right, so it's going to be in every program and app that you use.
Yep. Why hire a graphic designer when you can spend $100 a month to subscribe to Adobe and have your internal graphic designer just tell it what to do and it will design something for you?
Right. Yeah. You give it a couple of parameters, tell it to churn out a logo, and Adobe will set up all the parameters. It'll churn out, letterheads and business cards and truck sides and all this sort of stuff with your logo on, and it'll give you 100 logos in a minute. And if you don't like them, you press it, it'll give you another 100 logos. That's where that particular application.
Terrifying. So in that aspect, yes, it can do a lot of. Are we going to see it replace? And I guess this is the crux of the matter. What Mitch and I really got into here.
This is the big question, right? This is the discussion that Nicholas and I, we've got a bet on here, Kevin, right? Yeah. I predicted within the next couple of years, we're going to see an AI master blender for whiskey, and it's going to get to that point. To your point, where wine, it's already happened within the wine world. Yeah. Yes or no? Is that going to happen?
Yes.
Okay, but here's
Nicholas,
the question.
You owe me $100.
No. This was my point. I didn't say that it couldn't happen. What I said was it's not
going to. Can I have 100 on it as well?
Sure. I didn't say that it wouldn't happen. And this is the point again with the wine. Are those wines winning awards? Are those wines leading the category? Are those wines shaping how consumers drink? Or will AI get there?
Look, somebody has just taken this opportunity to go, what can I push with this tech? Right? What can I do? And they've made some PR out of it.
Correct.
And that's great fun. But I've been working with retailers now for 30 years. And if I was a retailer and knowing them how I do, and knowing how they look for any opportunity to increase margins and reduce expenses, if I was in a retailer's seat now, I would be sitting there with a tech guy going, how can we get this to help run our business? And eventually they will get down to, well, hell, why don't we do our own private label range, which we blend with AI, which we label with AI, which costs us nothing except for the sign-on fee for the programs. And we make a ton more money. And because the retailers own the real estate, at the end of the day, every other brand is at their mercy. And they can put all this AI stuff on gondola end, and they can undercut everybody. I've seen how private label has grown, and I can't help but think that's the way a retailer will go.
So, I mean, Kevin, here's the question for you. You've been in the whiskey industry for a while, working with brands, working with master blenders, going through this whole process. So given that knowledge that you have, and given the knowledge that you have about AI, how do you predict that would work within whiskey? Because I think it's, when we talk about wine, I'm not saying wine's basic, it is very complex, but I think the flavor profiles that you get within whiskey really outweigh whiskey, right? So how would that look, do you think, like an AI master blender? How would they pull all that together?
All right, well, look, I said something a long time ago that has stuck ever since, and it applies to whiskey drinkers as well as wine guys. And I said it again to wine people who I love to, rattle their cages. I said they're a bunch of Ferrari mechanics running a Ford dealership. I said that to these wine people. They're the people who are they're touring the vineyards, all this sort of stuff. They're standing there swilling the thing, they're sniffing it, they're talking about the fact that it smells of raspberries and roses. And a consumer doesn't do that. A consumer is just looking for something to go with their meat pie, and not be offensive.
Yeah.
And in a blind tasting, a lot of consumers at the base level, which is still like around £5 in England, can't tell at room temperature the difference between red and white wine. And that is fine for AI. AI can make a mess of that level. Really. right? And you know, people are, you know, I've got my favorite whiskeys. You've got your favorite whiskeys. I can see you've got like 1,000 whiskeys behind you. You know, you're interested and you're experts and you're looking for nuance and you're looking for stories and all this sort of stuff. But the median consumer is not.
That's interesting.
But the whiskey consumer is.
I don't believe. Well, maybe more. Maybe more. You do have a point.
So
maybe
the whiskey
more.
consumer cares.
It's more about stories.
Correct. So it's more like, especially here, right? So in America, there's a reason that Irish whiskey and Scotch whiskey does so well here, predominantly because there's a sense of people connecting to what was their grandfather's or their great grandfather's homeland. So the storytelling aspect of whiskey, specifically in the United States, is bigger than just what's in the bottle. It's reminiscent to them of family and linking back. People here will start drinking Scotch whiskies because they've found out through 23andMe that they've got some type of Scotch bloodline.
Sure.
I've seen it happen. So, you know, for me, I think, and for like guys like yourself, Kevin, like you're in the business of storytelling what's authentic. Like you can create something, and like AI can create something out of thin air, but the whiskey consumer likes authenticity to be, I think, at the backbone of everything they do. They love history, they love the storytelling, but they also like the people. So, you know, the master blenders are important. When the 16 men attain, you know, that story is stuck in people's minds because, you know, they've heard of Glenmorangie, they've read the back of a label box, and they want to go to Tane and meet these guys or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's where AI fundamentally doesn't click with what whiskey's all about, which is it can't replace the history, it can't replace the people, it can replace the storytelling, it can replace the packaging, and it probably could make the liquid. But all the other aspects of what makes whiskey so beautiful, like that, like, you know, Dave Broom's brilliant in this. Dave Broom always says he's much more interested in the people, the storytelling aspect of the people around whiskey making, and I think that's where the beauty of whiskey is. It's the finding the perfection and the imperfections of all these little nuances, and it's not an exact art, right? It's a time. It's based on 101 different parameters that human beings need to be interacting with. Do I think they're replaceable in that? Yeah, probably. But I think human beings are replaceable pretty much for everything. Like if AI took over, it would probably stop human beings from doing everything because we're our own worst enemies. Right? Like we can't get out of
that's getting heavy, man.
Yeah, but it's true. Like we can't get out of
that's true.
With global warming, with inflation, with world wars, with whatever it happens to be. It's not because, like, you can almost look at it and be like, okay, it's one dickhead's ego. So one guy with a lot of ego screwed it up for everybody. That's 90% of every problem this world has ever had. It usually comes back to one person with a massive amount of ego and some wacko way of looking at the world and getting enough people to jump on the bandwagon. Once you apply that, or once you look at that and say, what is it that we could do to solve the world's problems? We'll probably remove human beings from the equation and you're 95% there, right?
Yeah, I think what whiskey does benefit from is being mostly a premium product. It's aside from, like, if you're over here, it's you've got that Jim Beam or that sort of level, the base level, and those things could easily be chipped off at, and then it goes up pretty quickly, and then you get into all the stories and you get into the super premium and premium. What AI could do, if I was a retailer, is analyze all those whiskeys on my shelf and tell me that I only need half of them, because some of them are telling the same story, some of them are from the same area, some of them have got the same flavor profile. I think it could streamline that super premium sector.
Yep.
I'm not saying that it's gonna take over anything, and I haven't said that from the beginning. What I'm gonna say is it's gonna have an effect, because if I'm a retailer, I want to be efficient, right? My shelf space is everything, and everything needs to work hard. Every shelf inch needs to be working its head off. And I'm looking at, if I'm over, in the US, we've got 6,000 Pinot Noirs. We don't need 6,000 Pinot Noirs. We need maybe 60. I mean, there's no, they're all in exactly the same bottle. They're all say exactly the same stuff on the back label.
Yeah.
There's just no reason for there to be that many. So what there could be is a streamlining. That's all. And then retailers could use that, obviously, as they do, to kind of, leverage prices. I'm playing devil's advocate, but I before we had such things as private label, I was looking at that thinking that is going to really kind of take it.
Yeah.
Give it to the brands.
But this is what I think is interesting. It can change all of what a store carries because it'll look at an algorithm and say how you can streamline it.
Yeah.
But what it can't do is change consumer behavior. And what consumers like is choice. So there's a reason that there's 60,000 Pinot Noirs. In the same way that there's a reason that people can walk into a store filled with white labels and still choose a brand that they like, because it's a different conversation, because there's history, there's heritage, there's people, and there's trust behind that brand. And that's what the brand have spent probably millions of dollars doing, but more than that, time. They spent time finding a way to connect with the other human being. So AI can strip down all of the noise, but it can't take away the consumer choice. And that's fundamentally the human aspect of this. Is human beings, if you walked into a liquor store and your choice was all white labels and a very streamlined shelf, you'd probably go, I want to find a new liquor store. I want my brands. I want this. I want the things that I find enjoyment in because I've always done it and because I want to continue to do it. No?
I think that applies perfectly to you, Nicholas. I don't think that applies to that does not apply to my father-in-law at all.
Yeah.
He's a median kind of guy.
Doesn't care.
He wants life to be easy. He wants to have a choice of 4 soap powders and 9 cat foods and maybe 10 whiskeys. And then he'll probably buy that same whiskey over and over again. I've seen him do it.
Yep.
Over and over again for the rest of his life. So I think it's also for courses. There will certainly be specialist retailers and areas where the likes of you and me and Mitch can go out and find stories and find interesting things and beautiful packs and all that. And I hope we never lose that. My whole point from this whole discussion is the fact that the middle median sector is going to get hit.
I have a question for Kim. Do you like the idea of that happening? No, I don't mean like enjoy the idea of something getting hit, but like, do you think that section of this business needs a shake-up? Do you think it's a positive thing that something can come in and be like, it's a lot of noise here, let's clean it up?
Do I like it? No, of course I don't like it. I mean, I love the fact that there's diversity and new things coming in, and particularly in liquor. I mean, wine I think needs a massive shake-up. Because it's the most the rate of innovation, the rate of change, the rate of just anybody doing anything interesting is just glacial. Nothing's happened. I've been doing this 30 years, and back then they were charging £5 for a bottle of Merlot, and they're still charging £5 for a bottle of Merlot. It's just going nowhere. Yeah. So, but that's why we're mostly in the liquor industry now, because there's somebody who's always coming in with, oh, we just had a massive success with a banana flavored bourbon here, and I mean, just fantastic, just unusual, great products. Somebody I know is soaking his pig fat in whiskey. I mean, it's just there's just great innovation always going on in the liquor business, and I would really miss that. I think we need change, and we need evolution and innovation, and again it comes more from the liquor business and even the whiskey business as well. Yeah, so a lot of people have been asking, well, what do we do? It's like the the rise of the robots. How can we combat this?
Yeah.
How could it's like this inevitable onslaught of we're going to be taken over by machines and we're all going to end up in the Matrix. And I think I've been saying the same thing, and you touched on it earlier with what you said about people having people having stories, and especially whiskey drinkers liking to know the backstory much more than most sectors of the liquor industry. Whiskey drinkers really like that expert knowledge and the backstories. And I think it's important for every single brand owner to really look at themselves and try to find something about themselves that is unique, that they can be creative about it or strategic about it, but try and find something that is different and unique. And I'll give you a case, one example. We redesigned Aberfeldy. And when we got it, it had a squirrel on the label, and nobody could tell me why there was a squirrel on the label. And we did a lot of research up there.
It's not because they were hoarding lots of whiskey, no, for the winter.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, everybody hoards whiskey, and in Scotland, you throw a rock and you hit a lovely distillery. You know, it's in a beautiful part of the world. The landscape is amazing. Everybody shares the same kind of history.
We have an embarrassment of riches.
It really is. I mean, and just fantastic, just stunning. But the problem is everybody's got that. So what is it that is different? And we found with Aberfeldy that they use water. Their spring contains gold. They used to pan for it up there. I mean, it's not a lot of gold, but there's actually gold in the spring water. And that it was just a fantastic storytelling opportunity. And then we did a strategy around the golden dram and all this, which got rolled out to be, ads and displays and point of sale, and everything we do on pack is all around this idea of it being the golden dram. And everybody has a story if you dig deep enough. And I would just look at it. I would say to everybody, every brand owner, just look at yourself and see if your story is different enough, and then just dig until you find something that is.
So I have a question then on that. What's the squirrel for?
I don't know.
So they just had it there, or they were just. It looked nice.
Nobody knew. I know the guy was making the label. He probably looked outside and saw a squirrel. And put that on the label. I've got no idea. There was nobody could tell us why there was a squirrel on the label.
I need to dig out an old bottle of Aberfeldy and see if it's still got the squirrel in it.
Yeah, and that's well, we've taken it off now. So, but when everything is all about storytelling and all about the brand, and there's a train there, and we tell the full story of the brand on the pack. But a lot of people don't, and I think especially all those kind of private labels. This is where we can beat the robots, right? All those private labels.
Tell us, Kevin. Yeah. Tell us, how do we fight? How do we fight back without having to get in a motorcycle and break our mothers out of mental institutions like Terminator? How do we fight back against the machine?
Yeah. Well, you see, what the machines will do, will look at all the labels, and then they'll say, well, a lot of labels have got thistles on them, so let's put a thistle on them. And you can imagine, like, the base private label will have a thistle on it. You just know it. You can guarantee that there'll be a thistle on there. So what the engines are looking for is average. They're really good at median. So if we can dig down and find our human stories and tell them well on pack and our communications, we can be different, and we use humanity to beat the machines. There it is.
There we go. I love that. So it's just don't be average, and then you'll be fine. Which I think the Scotch whisky industry does a wonderful job of doing. I think we hold ourselves to a better standard. Not just the Scotch whisky industry, I would say the global whisky industry holds itself to a standard of being decidedly better than average and above average across the board. It's okay to have average whiskies out there, but I think the majority of the luxury brands and the higher end price points when it stand above head and shoulders of saying that they're just an average whiskey company?
Well, I'm not sure about the global market. I mean, if you go to India, you'll find some decidedly average-looking whiskies selling more than most of the Scotch whiskies put together.
Yeah.
So it's horses for courses. But I do think that the Scotch whiskey does a great job of telling local stories, telling about the terroir and the local character and the geography and prides itself on that. So I think out of I was thinking about it, out of every alcohol sector, I think Scotch whiskey has got the best chance to fight the robots.
There we go. Heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first.
Yeah. No, we can beat them. We can do it.
Before we wrap up here, I wanted to ask you, what do you think, if you could sum it up right now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of AI within the whiskey industry and the booze industry in general?
The advantages. Well, the advantages are obviously incredible cost saving, and the disadvantage are lots of people without jobs.
Yeah,
that's the main issue here. It's just a great way to shortcut all the way to average. And if we're not careful, and we have to always strive for excellence in the making of the whiskies and the packaging of the whiskies, and trying to add value and tell stories and be interesting. And AI could really make a dent in that, and that's a real issue with me. And the fact that people are going to lose their jobs, and they are definitely going to lose their jobs. Yeah. From my sector all the way through to writers, photographers, just everybody, down the whole line, they're going to lose their jobs. And I'm in this business for the people. I was doing other stuff before this, and the people in the whiskey and the drinks business are the best, man. They're in it for passion, and you're not going to get passion out of AI. You don't get character and personality and passion out of AI. It's just cold-blooded efficiency. But the business side of this business is got to be more efficient.
That's interesting. Do you think that I guess we'll wait and see, right? We're currently seeing these companies being pulled in front of Congress and other governments around the world. Do you think that fear of affecting the economy and affecting jobs is enough for them to say, this isn't worth exploring, we're going to shut it down?
I would love to say that. I would love to be able to think that as an ideal.
Yeah.
But, I live in America where the government is owned by corporations. Yeah. So if people can make more money, if the people at the very top, who I'm talking about, can make more money, they'll push that shit through Congress, because over here you can bribe politicians. It's perfectly legal. So, I hope I cling on to my ideals as always, but yeah, this is definitely going to it's about making all industries more efficient, and given that will drive profits, I can't see that anybody's going to stop this.
I've never really seen anybody screw their way to the bottom before, but it feels like we're doing a pretty good job. Well, on that bombshell, Kevin, thanks very much for being a guest. This has been massively enlightening, a great blast to pick your brains. You're one of the iconic creative experts in this field, and to have you come on our show and really kind of enlighten us on this has been a blast. So thank you so much.
Hey, well, great. Thanks for having me. And I hope I'm wrong about everything, by the way.
So I can save $100.
Thanks for being on the show, Kevin. That was fantastic. Really good to get your
opinion on that. No problem. Anytime, guys. Anytime.